Good morning, everybody. I'm Mel from the Sussex Social. Thank you for joining us live. I'm here with John Espirian, who is going to be talking to me about how to maximise the effectiveness of your About page. I will let John introduce himself in a minute. The purpose of this live is that I work with lots of clients and businesses, and they just throw together their About page at the last minute, or they don't see it as something that's valuable. They might not even have one, or they really struggle to know what to say and how to put it together. So I will let John introduce himself, and then we will get cracking.
Nice one. Thanks for having me, Mel. Yeah, I'm John Espirian. I used to be a copywriter for more than a decade, and now I'm specializing more on LinkedIn consulting. But yeah, I spent plenty of time helping people sharpen their messages and get their website and other online content in shape. So yeah, happy to dive into this this topic about a really important part of your website.
Yeah, I think particularly if you are I hate the word solopreneur, so we'll count that. You know, if you are a one-man business and professional services, it's absolutely vital to kind of get that right. And there's a few questions coming up, so we'll answer those at the end.
Okay.
But so I think a good place to start is, why is the About section of your website so important?
I think you've got to look at people's behavior when they look at websites. You know, most people will land on a website homepage, and then one of the first things that's going to draw their attention is the About page, and maybe anything to do with pricing if they're looking at a service provider. You know, people are nosy and they want to get to the point. So they want to see prices, they want to see information that's going to help them, and they want to learn a bit about who they might be doing business with. So every time I look at a website, the About page is one of the first things I look at. And for anyone who ever looks at their stats through things like Google Analytics, your About page is probably going to be one of the most trafficked pages on your site. So it's like having a big billboard on a motorway. You know, you want to get that right. Some of the other pages on your site might be like little side streets. You know, they don't get much attention, but your About page probably will. And so it's worth you spending some time in getting it right. And the big mistake people make is either, like you said, they either just kind of ignore it, you know, don't bother with it at all, or it's a lastminute.com kind of thing. Or they just think, well, you know, that they take it literally, or this is about me, so I better, you know, I better tell you where I went to primary school, and it's like a timeline of your life. And actually, people are lazy readers sometimes, but most importantly, I think they're just used to being able to get information quickly, and they want to just make sure that they're in the right place and get information that they need selfishly. So whatever you do with your About page, you've got to understand who's looking at it and what they want to know. And they probably don't care about, you know, where you went to school or whatever, but they do care about how you can help them. So the lesson I got when I was studying content marketing 6 years ago was that actually the secret title of your About page should be, you know, how I can help you, and just write everything in service of that if you can.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, because I mean, one of the things that I hear people say quite a lot, really sorry, they've just turned up to take the recycling. One of the things that I hear quite a lot of people is, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, I don't want to appear boastful. And I think one of the really powerful things is just picking up on what you just said, is that kind of whole reframe. It's almost tipping it to thinking, okay, so how is this helping people? What's the problem I solve?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, if you understand who's reading the copy, the content of the page, then you should know what kind of problems they're facing. And if you can empathize with that and get across that, yeah, I've been there too, or I really understand this, or I've helped 20 clients in the last year doing that thing that you're struggling with. That's, you don't need to blow your own trumpet. You're just showing that you're being relatable, and that they're in the right ballpark for dealing with someone who could solve their problem. So the closer you can show that you can understand that, the better positioned you are for them to actually trust you enough to get in touch and have a chat.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think that's it. So what do you think are the key things that we need to be including then, John?
I think you should start with saying really succinctly how you can help the other person. So if you're offering a couple of services, just frame them in terms of what problems those services solve for the person who's reading the page. That's what you should start with. As I said, the big mistake is that people make it far too personal and maybe only personal. And I think there's space for you to include some of that so that people know who they're dealing with. But I would push that further down the page. That's going to force people to scroll a bit.
Yeah.
If you started the page, let's say, with a 30-second video welcoming people and saying, this is the kind of stuff that I do, these are the kind of people I help, here's a little bit about the services I offer, and then you offer a couple of panels that are really clear so that people can direct themselves to other relevant parts of the site, that might be all you need.
Okay.
And then maybe you'd follow it up with, something about why you got into this field, or something that just further grounds you as being an expert in that field without blowing your own trumpet. You don't need to make a massive page that has the whole kitchen sink, because people are not probably going to scroll through it. Try and get funnel people towards the important pages that will start more conversations. That's what I'm all about on social media and on my websites, is start more conversations. And I think the best way of doing that is if you can get your face on camera. That really helps a lot. One of my big frustrations with all websites, I mean, this goes beyond about pages, is that people use stock images. It's like, that's not you, and I bet that's not your client. Like, why don't you just put yourself on there? That's a way of being more personal. And if you're brave enough, put yourself on video as well, because you get across the whole personal branding and the body language and the tone of voice, and all of that leads to starting more conversations. And that's what it's about. The more conversations you can have, the more likely you are to complete a piece of business or get a referral from someone. So I think if you can put some personality into it at the same time, that's great. And that comes from knowing what your personal brand is all about. And a lot of people, as we were talking before we went live, a lot of people don't do that thinking about, what do I want to be known for? What personal brand elements do I want to make sure that are in my content so that people can remember me for this one or two phrases, and put that in there as much as possible too.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely key. I just wanted to kind of pick up on a couple of things. So I think the first is kind of doing that background work around your personal branding, what you're trying to achieve, and as you said, what you want to be known for, but also actually who your audience are and what do they want to see. And I think particularly for a lot of, I mean, obviously we were talking about where you were in 2017 compared to where you are now, and I think that's important. Our businesses change, our brands change. I've made a decision to focus a lot more on LinkedIn this year for a variety of reasons. But I think for a lot of businesses, that's the kind of missing piece of the puzzle, particularly if you're not a marketer. You don't actually think, okay, what's the problem I'm trying to solve? Why am I different? And doing all of that background work. And I think it does take time. And I think there's just a lot of the stuff that I do with people is kind of start from the beginning. And I think a couple of useful exercises, particularly if you've kind of changed career, is asking people what's the transformation that you offer them, because actually their words are really powerful. And I think you say this on your about page, we're all so close to our businesses that we can't necessarily see objectively what that transformation might be.
Absolutely. If you can get a trusted friend or your best client to say something back to you, and you might be able to use that text as kind of voice of customer and use the phrasing that might attract other people like them. And yes, absolutely do that. And another problem I see often is because people they might look around and they might just be a bit fearful about putting the real them out there. So there's this kind of retreat to formality, that they'll suddenly start using some longer words and longer paragraphs because that feels a bit more professional. This is a website. This is out there on the internet, and I need to be, but actually if you can just relax and be the real you would be if you were on a Zoom call with someone, or if you go and meet someone in a coffee lounge or whatever. I think people would appreciate that, because you'll attract more of the people who kind of vibe with you. So, like one of my personal brand elements is this idea of being a cheeky geek. Okay. So someone who hates cartoons in their content, right? I don't want to work with them. I want to put them off. And so I'll lean into that, like, because I really like them. I like emojis, and I like a bit of humor in my comments and cartoons in my content. So I'll use those. I'll use them on social media. I'll use them on my website. And if you don't like that, that's brilliant, because you're not going to waste my time. You're not even going to bother sending me an email or booking a call with me. If you do like it, you're much more likely to lean in. Now, that doesn't mean that that's going to be right for everyone, but whatever is true for you, you just need to express it and get over that fear and that retreat to formality, because that's going to kill you. Because if you're being all stuffy and formal on your website and then people meet you and actually you're totally different, then there's a bit of a disconnect. There's a mental disconnect going on, and that's not good for building trust. So the more you can just relax and understand what you really are, and then be that thing online, the better placed you are to influence people.
Yeah, I think what you were saying there is just so valuable, and I don't know if it's make myself sound really old. It's kind of, traditional marketing is a lot more formal and a lot more stuffy, and traditional copywriting, and we obviously live in an age where personal branding is really important, and but that's a relatively new thing, I think. And I think I feel personally that some people feel like they have to be more formal because it's deemed to be more professional, I suppose. But actually, if that's not who you are, you're not going to, like you said, you're not going to attract the right people, and then you're probably not going to be a good fit for them, and they're not going to be a good fit for you. And then neither of you is going to get as much out of the relationship, really.
But that speaks to the whole, what is professional?
Yes.
Are you going to treat people with respect? Are you going to meet your deadlines? If you're going to do those things, and are you actually competent at the core service? Like if you've just turned up 5 minutes ago and did 5 minutes of study on the internet and you're trying to pretend to be an expert, it doesn't matter what your personal brand is, you're going to get shown up eventually as being a bit of a fraud. But if you've got a good core service, and you do the basics of treating people with respect and fulfilling your promises, so if you give someone a price, you stick to it. If you say that you're going to do it in 2 weeks, then do it in 2 weeks. Don't take 4 months to do it. If you do those things, then does it matter if you're, having fun in your videos, or you're covered in tattoos or whatever? It doesn't really matter. And the people who think it does matter are probably never going to be a good match for you anyway, in which case you're filtering them out and you're leaving the people who are actually attracted to what you're all about.
I think that is, I think somebody's actually said, Lisa said, retreat to formality. I remember that phrase. I'm working on not doing that. It's hard though.
It is hard, and that's where, gosh, before 2016, before I really got into content marketing, I was that guy. So I started my blog in 2014. So basically, for about 2 years, I was, always quite factual, and I probably still am, to be honest. But it was very formal. And if you ever heard me, talking about stuff on audio or on video, it's just very straight bat, no personality. Really didn't want to take a risk, and it got nowhere. I relaxed. Then it started to work, and even then it took a while, because nothing happens overnight. Like I've got fairly good following on LinkedIn, for example. I've got lots of traffic to my website, and I've got work to keep me going, thankfully. But that didn't happen overnight. It's taken me years to get there, and that's the other big thing, is that the best about page in the world is not going to suddenly start making you hand over fist money. You've still got to build some social credit in your bank, and that can take months and very often years. So you just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, I think that's really, you and I were talking about this before we got onto the live. I think that's, consistency is really key across everything you do. So your personal brand and how often you show up and things like that. I think it's it can be really challenging to be consistent because sometimes we just get busy and things happen in life and all of those different things. So I think it's a case of really identifying what that consistency actually means for you. So is it, you know, if you can consistently show up twice a week, then that's going to be much better than showing up every day solidly for 6 weeks and then not doing anything at all because you've got distracted and fallen off them. But I think it's just going back to really thinking about what are those things what's the transformation I offer for people? How can I help them? I think when you're writing your content as well, if you could correct me if you're wrong, because you know far more about this than me, it's really thinking, you know, asking other people, you know, as we've said, how you know, how have I helped you? How can I help them? But also thinking about I think you've got it on your About page here, the most common questions and challenges I get asked about. I mean, that's a great place to start for informing your About page and informing your content.
It is, and you know, some people don't want to commit to the regular practice of blogging, which is perfectly fine because it would take a lot of time. But at the minimum, you should have some kind of FAQ section that gets across your, you know, the top 10 asked questions. That might save you some unnecessary emails, and also it demonstrates that you actually know what you're talking about. You know, if you can answer those authoritatively, then people are more likely to trust you. And that's what it's all about, is giving people that kind of psychological safety that, okay, I'm in the right place. This guy or this girl, they've answered all these questions before. They know all my problems. You know, where do I sign on the dotted line? That's where you want to get to, is to shorten that cycle between them finding you and trusting you and actually wanting to do business with you. So the more evidence you can give that you really know what you're talking about by answering real questions, the better. And there's a really good, well, there's loads of really good books on content marketing, but there's one called They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan, which I really like. And it's just all about, think about every single question that your customers might ask you or have asked you, and go and answer those questions on your website, because chances are someone is Googling that. And if you can be the person to supply the answer, if you do that often enough, they're just going to think, well, they know it all. You know, this person is just a no-brainer to go and work with them, even if they're charging 30% more than everyone else. They know the answer. I'm going to go to them.
I think this is I think it's really interesting because you mentioned pricing a few times. I mean, I went onto someone's website the other day and there was no pricing on there, and I got really frustrated because I got, you know,
just think about how you feel. If you're looking for a service provider, you know, if you're looking for I don't know, you're looking for a plumber, and you're stuck for word of mouth recommendations, so you're looking online, and then you find someone and they look good and they don't put their prices on, you're going to go, well, they might be way out of my budget. And you might click away, and Google's full of loads of other doors to go through, isn't it? So you know, my thing is all about being relentlessly helpful. So one of the ways I demonstrate that is I'm going to try and give you the information as quickly as I can, and give you all of the information that you would want, that I would want if I was looking for a LinkedIn consultant. I'm not going to go, oh, he's good, I've no idea how much he charges, but yeah, let's have a go. You know, I want to know how much I'm going to spend. So that it's one of the top asked questions. So if you haven't got your prices on your website, you should at least have something that talks about how prices are determined in your industry, for example. But actually, even better than that, if you can be transparent about how you charge, that's better. I've earned a lot more money since I published my prices in 2016, which my ex was firmly against. It's like, you can't possibly tell people that. It's like, well, why not? I'd want to know. And it's worked out.
It's a British thing about never talking about money.
Yeah, but if you think about how you behave and how you think, you'd want to know.
Oh yeah, of course.
So if you'd want to know, then give that to people, because they want to know.
No, definitely. We've had someone's asking how to distinguish what information to include in the About Us experience section and or company page, because 3 pages could include the same content.
Yeah. Well, so now we're talking about LinkedIn as opposed to websites now. So I don't pay a lot of attention to the experience section. You've got to scroll quite a way down to that, and that's the most kind of CV-like part of your LinkedIn profile. That's not where you demonstrate personality for me. I would rather capture people's attention with the banner, the photo, the video, and the about statement, and your headline, of course. So in the about statement, just get across like what you do, who you serve, why people should get in touch, and put some kudos in there if you can, like a killer client testimonial, or clients you've worked with, or results you've achieved. Those are really good things to do. And if you can do those same things on your about page on your website as well, that's brilliant. Like, if you've worked for the BBC and you've grown revenue or whatever, you're going to lead with something really big like that. Experience, I don't give a lot of kudos to, because it's very, very CV like. And your company page on LinkedIn, realistically, there are reasons to have one, but it's not going to get as much visibility as your personal profile. Just people like interacting with people. If they see a face, they're much more likely to engage. My company page has got 20 times fewer followers than my personal, but they're both me. So one of them's got my face, one of them's got a logo, but other than that, they are actually both me. But people like interacting with people.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's being mindful as well that people don't want to do business with their logo. I mean, when we think about all of the really big successful companies, love them or hate them, Apple, Amazon, Meta, we all know who their senior lead management team are, and their CEOs. They all have a personal brand. And and it's kind of building that connection with the audience. Di asked about having videos on your about page, which I know you kind of touched on.
I think that's a really good idea, because for various reasons. Firstly, it's a great way of conveying personality and body language and stuff that you can't really do in writing unless you're an extremely talented writer. And secondly, it's great for dwell time, which Google will measure. Like, how much time are people actually spending on this page? Well, if they've got to go through a couple of minutes of a video before they scroll down and read the rest, that's great, because it shows that people are spending some time and giving some attention to the page. So it's good from that point of view. So if you can, even if you don't want to run a YouTube channel, it's free to set up a YouTube page, and you could upload a video there and embed it on your website. All of that is actually relatively easy. You don't necessarily need to pay a webmaster or anything like that to help you. You could do it yourself. And I think it's a really valuable thing to do. And a lot of websites don't have personal videos. They don't have personal photography, which I think is shameful, to be honest with you. But most of them don't have personal videos. But I think that would really help. I can judge within a few seconds of seeing someone talking, like, okay, I'm interested in them. Or I might spot something off and it's not for me, but I'll be able to make a quicker decision because of that.
Yeah, I think the video thing is really important. I think one of the, just going back to your point, is that I think people who perhaps don't have a photo of themselves on their about page, or are worried about posting a photo of themselves on LinkedIn or social media, are probably quite far removed from getting to the point where they're quite happy to record a video.
Yeah, you're probably right. The advice I'd give there is that you probably care about your self-image a lot more than the person who's looking at the content. They might have seen a million photos that day. They just want to get to the point of, is this the right person for me, and are they offering something I'm interested in? And so you will help them more if you can show up. And there are extremes to this. Like, if literally every page was just a headshot video of you rabbiting on, and it's all me, then actually you could do yourself some harm. But getting on camera for 30 seconds or something, it really will help you quite a lot. And I encourage all the businesses I speak to do this, so that it just humanizes them. Because like you said, no one wants to talk to a logo, but if you can see a team, and we've got 5 members on our team, and here's a 30-second video from each, that I would be more likely to trust that group of people.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. And it helps to bring out personality, and also just, I think recording video can be so much quicker than actually writing.
It can be.
I mean, I don't even know how many words we've said in this half an hour conversation, but it would have taken us a lot more than 24 minutes and 37 seconds to write this all out.
Yeah.
And I find as well, one of the things that I talk to people about quite often is if you're struggling to kind of come up with ideas and flesh out what the transformation is, is to record yourself talking about what you do and how you help people.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of in a way that you would introduce yourself if you were speaking to somebody who was in the room with you or you were on the phone with. What do you think about that? Do you think that's...
Yeah, it's a good idea. I think looking at your recommendations and testimonials that you've had should give you some insight about how you've actually helped people as well. So if you can speak to your best customers or, you know, friends and family who really know your business, who know what you deliver, because there's a great quote that's that I've put in my book from Steve Woodruff about, you know, you can't read the label of the jar you're in. So you might think you're offering one thing, but actually what people are really valuing is something completely different. And if you can get to the heart of that, but you can only really do it from really disciplined self-reflection or from speaking to people who are close enough to you that they can really understand what your superpower is, or, you know, your fairy dust, or whatever you want to call it, and then convey that as succinctly as you can. And I just wanted to mention about that. A lot of people used to think that a page had to have loads and loads of words on it because it's got more chance of ranking on Google and all that. But you got to remember now that Google is getting smarter all the time, and its only purpose in terms of its search engine is to provide the best possible answer to the question it's being asked. So it has to interpret the question it's being asked, and then it has to present something that it thinks will answer that question adequately. That doesn't mean it needs to show you War and Peace every time, because actually that would be exhausting. If every time you clicked on a Google link, you get 10,000 words to read through, you'd probably stop using Google eventually. It's like, oh, just get to the point, please. So you don't have to write loads. And if you can keep it concise, people will appreciate that. Maybe subconsciously, you know, if you can make it 20% shorter than it was going to be, but it still says the same thing, that's valuable. And one of the key lessons I learned about good web content is the more you take off the page, the stronger you leave what is on the page. You know, you concentrate the value into what words remain. They become more powerful. And the more you put on the page, the more you risk diluting the whole thing. So if anything, you might want to look at your page and just think, could I get rid of that? Could I get rid of that without removing the meaning? And if you can get to the point, I think people really appreciate that.
Yeah. No, I think that's, I've written tons of notes because it's just so much advice. Thank you. I know there's a lot of people watching. Has anybody got any questions or anything they kind of want a little bit of a recap on?
Another thing I would suggest while people are thinking of questions is one of the number one tips in copywriting really is to make sure that you can read your own text out loud and say to yourself earnestly, does this sound like me? Because a lot of people will actually go and hire a copywriter to go and do their writing, which is fine. If you've got the budget to do that, that's brilliant. Obviously, a professional is going to get better results than you, unless you are also a professional writer. I wouldn't actually recommend that as a first port of call. If you're just getting started, you've got to find yourself first before you try and sharpen what you say. So I wouldn't dive straight in with professional copywriting. But if you do get someone else to write your content for you, they have to know you well enough. They have to be briefed well enough to mimic your true voice. So whether it's you writing it or someone else, read it out loud and say, would I actually have said that in a conversation? And if you wouldn't, it's not right, I'm afraid. In which case you might need to scrap it or respin it somehow. So that's really important. And that's actually true for all of your strategically valuable content. You know, if you're sending an email to someone and it's just to one person, you might not need to think about it too much. But if it's going to go in a brochure or on an about page or in a LinkedIn headline or a LinkedIn article or something, you've got to read it out loud and say, is this me? Does this sound like me? Would I actually say this in a meeting or in a face-to-face? And if not, you've got some thinking to do.
Okay, I think that's a really, really valuable tip. And I think just going back to the professional copywriter, I think it's like with anybody you work with on your website or your about page or social media or any element of your marketing, you really need to have that relationship with somebody that they actually know you and you can trust them and they can reflect your tone of voice. And I think writing copy for somebody like me is probably very different from writing for your local shoe shop down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. The
So,
copywriter's role is really to be the armchair psychologist who gets in your head, the client, and gets in the head of the prospective reader, and then makes you sound like you on your best day. That's it. Not anything false, but the real you, when you're well rested and it's your best day and you're standing on stage and you're delivering the message you really want to deliver. That's their job. And great copywriters can do that, but it's got to sound like you.
Yeah. We've had some brilliant comments. Lots of people saying thank you very much. Emma has asked, when you're in the early days of business, what would you put on the page?
Well, early days of business, you should still have had some kind of business plan about what kind of products or services you're offering, and you just want to make sure that that's really, really clear.
Yeah.
And if you can do some thinking about what you want to be known for and what your personality is, those are the things that you need to layer into that message, so that, you know, if you're, let's say you're offering logo design or something, well, there are a million different logo designers out there. So you're probably not doing anything that's vastly different to lots of other people. In which case you need to just make sure that your personality comes through at all points. Even if it's a micro bit of text that would go under an image caption, it just needs to be loaded with whatever your personality is. Whether you're new to business or not, you should have a personality. If you don't have a personality, you need to get one pretty quickly, because otherwise you're not going to stand out, I'm afraid. Just be clear. Just be clear about what you're offering and put your personality into it, and that's all you need to do. You don't need to write War and Peace. You don't need to do a timeline of, you know, where you went to school and all that stuff. Just show some personality and invite people to have more conversations with you. That's where all the business will come.
I think just to pick up on that as well, I've had people come to me and they're in startup mode and they're doing something different to what they perhaps have done in a previous life or a corporate career. And you know, I think both of us have done different things in previous lives. And the lady I was working with at the time, she said to me, "But I haven't got any clients at the moment." But actually, what she had set up was based on all the learnings she'd got from her previous role and all of the challenges she's had and how she'd solved them. So I think going back to that kind of what's the transformation and what's your personal branding, I kind of said to her, okay, you know, we've got perhaps three, I can't remember what exactly was it meant, 3 to 5 different scenarios or challenges that you come and actually write down, not to put on your website, just to do that background work, how you solve them. And then she was like, oh, actually, that's kind of helped me to find the answers.
Yeah.
Because I know how I've solved that problem in the past.
Definitely. All of the things that have happened to you in the past, those are all the bags you carry, and some of those you might want to drop, but some of them you want to keep with you and use the tools that are in those bags. So like for me, I've got a computer science and software testing background. So if I addressed LinkedIn in any way other than being a data nerd and an experimenter and a scientist, it wouldn't make any sense. But I've got that background, so it's natural that I bring that across. It would be weird if I did anything different. So use your past skills, all your transferable skills. Go and write them down. Think, how could I translate this into what I'm now going to do? What spin can I put on? And that might end up with you producing a service that it is different because of your life experience and your work experience. And don't be afraid of that. It could be a superpower.
Well, John, thank you so much. I mean, I can see from all the comments that everybody's just saying, you know, they've got loads of notes, as have I, and they've learnt notes. It's I think we'll all be going away and squirreling a look at our about page. And
well, do you know what? We've already got a challenge inside Espresso Plus this month for something else, but maybe next month we could take a look at revising our about pages and doing a little group task around that. I think that would be a good thing.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, everybody. If you've got any questions or comments, or you're not connected to myself or John, then do connect with us. We'd love to hear from you. And if you've got any questions or you'd like to find out more about John's book or his membership, then do take a look at his profile. And have a fantastic Friday. I know not all of you in the UK, but we are experiencing some.
We're melting in the heat.
So it's about time to go out and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
Thanks
thank
for
you
having me,
very
Mel.
much.
Cheers.
See you soon. Bye bye.